Welcome to Real Talk. I'm Faisal Karmali. Today we have Connor Curran. Connor is the founder of Local Laundry. I wanted to have Connor on the show because he's going to tell you how you can get hundreds of thousands of dollars of business on a $50 budget. Now stay tuned to the end of the episode. Connor's going to give you his best pieces of advice for business owners looking to grow their business. But first, subscribe and hit that bell to find out every time we post advice from a successful business owner. Let's get started.
It's all about the stories of the businesses and the people involved.
That's why we're here. No entrepreneur does it by themselves. So Connor, how did you start this entire business?
You want to go way back to the beginning?
Let's go back in the beginning. Let's do it right from the start.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. Really excited to be here. I have no business being in the clothing business. I really don't. I got a business degree. I got an MBA. I worked in oil and gas. I was living abroad in Sweden doing my MBA. And I had got laid off from my oil and gas job here in Calgary, like everyone else in 2014. And I took this time while I was studying to really figure out what it is that I wanted to do. You know, I wasn't quite the right fit for oil and gas. Big fan of, Canadian energy, but I wasn't a good fit for it. So while I was traveling, I really wanted to create something that I could control, that I could grow, that I could use as a vehicle to give back. Because I saw my parents who came to this country, no education, no money, worked 3 jobs, and they were able to start a business and create a life for themselves, be their own bosses. But more importantly, they were able to use their business as a vehicle to give back to others and the community. So I really like what they did, and I really wanted to have something similar. My own business, something I could grow, but use as a vehicle to give back. And so while we're studying in Sweden and traveling, people would always ask us, what part of the world did we come from? We say Canada, they'd say amazing. And then we'd say, they'd say, where in Canada? We say Calgary, and they go, never heard of it.
Yeah.
I was always kind of drawn to clothing because I felt clothing is such a great way to express our values, whether consciously or subconsciously, or just express how we're feeling or what we believe in and that kind of thing. So I wanted something that really represented Calgary in a way that wasn't your typical I Heart Calgary, cartoon moose in an RCMP uniform that you find at the airport kind of thing. I wanted something quality that really spoke to me, as a young person, someone from Calgary. So I just did what any student does and Google search how to make a t-shirt company and watched a YouTube video, and $50 later and a couple hours later, I had this online clothing company. And this shocked me, that it was that easy to kind of get a business up and running and get going. And as soon as I told everyone I started a clothing company, everyone just laughed. Yeah. And everyone's like, Connor, like your sister's dressed you up till like 2 years ago. You have no business being in the clothing business. But, here we are 5 years later. We got a strong team of 4 or 5. I've been full-time with the business for about 2.5 years now, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
It's funny how a lot of entrepreneurs kind of just rush through the first 5 years of the business when they kind of explain it. They don't really go into the whole experience.
Yeah.
What made you decide to go online and actually try it? Like that's a lot of courage to get out there and push through and do something online. E-commerce is very challenging on its own.
Yeah.
So walk me through that piece of your life where you said, "Shit, I'm going to do this."
Well, I always knew that I want to start my own business. I honestly never thought I was smart enough. You look at small business owners, you're like, man, those guys got it figured out. Yeah. They know everything about business and taxes and profit margins. Like, I'll never be that smart. I'll never be able to do that. And then
this is when you're doing your MBA?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had an undergrad in business and I'm doing my MBA, and I still did not think I was smart enough to run my own business.
Wow.
But then I had some friends that they started their own thing, and then I started getting green with envy. And I'm thinking, you know what? I'm just as smart as they are. Yeah. If they can do it, why can't I do it?
Perfect.
How hard could it be? And then, so I thought, well, there's only one way to find out. So I'm just going to go down this rabbit hole and figure it out. And I think you just have to have that curiosity about you. I mean, so many small business owners, they have a great idea and they think that's where it all starts. And that's really the idea part is the easy part. Then what most business people do is they write out a business plan. And they plan until it's perfect.
Yeah.
Right? And so sometimes you talk to someone, they have this great idea, and then 6 months later you see them like, how's it going? How's the business going? They're like, oh, I haven't started yet. It's not perfect yet.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's a lot of fear. I really do. I think it's scary starting a business because you're putting yourself, your soul into something that didn't exist before, and you're putting it out there, exposing yourself. It's completely naked out there in front of all your friends.
So vulnerable.
All your friends. It's very vulnerable.
Yeah.
So of course, why wouldn't you want it to be perfect before you show it?
Sure.
I was just like, I'm not going to plan anything. I'm not going to prep. I'm just going to go. I'm going to learn. And, you know, like Reid Hoffman always says, jump off the cliff and build the airplane on the way down.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do it in a way because I don't have a lot of money. I don't want to spend a lot of money to see if I can get this thing off the ground. You know, I gave up drinking for a couple of months, saved all my beer money, and put that into my business. And so I was like, I'm going to start this for like $50 or less. And it was
Seriously, $50 to start this business?
100%. Yeah. Yeah.
Holy shit, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I wanted to kind of prove to myself and to others that, like, A, you don't have to be the smartest person in the world to start a business, you know, and you don't have to have a lot of money, because that's always the first thing. You get a business plan, go to the bank, get a loan, find investors. And it's like, no, you can just start for the sake of starting and just go and
just
grow.
for our audience now, you did a $50 startup. What's revenue like now?
This year, we're hoping to get anywhere, you know, from, you know, about $750,000.
Look
That's,
at that.
Yeah.
Gee, holy cow.
Hoping to break that $1 million
go
from
$50
next year.
to hundreds of thousands of dollars, going to break $1 million shortly, I think.
Hopefully, yeah.
No, you will. and you know you've got the DNA for that.
Yeah.
That's a huge return on investment.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I mean, like, I started back in 2015, and I think what a lot of people from my generation and young people, they don't understand is patience, right? You want to start a startup for $50 and you want to be at $1 million in revenue by next week.
Yeah.
You know, we want everything now, right?
Yeah.
We have Netflix, Uber, Skip the Dishes, anything we want, we can get it now.
Yeah.
And then we think it's the same when we start a business, but it's not, right? It's about patience. I mean, I worked my butt off like for 2 years, not getting paid. My business partner still hasn't paid himself. You know, he still works full time, and you know, just working my full time job, living at home, not going out and partying with friends, just everything.
Sacrifice.
Yeah, and it didn't feel like a sacrifice because I'd already done all that. Went to university, partied. I had gotten married and settled down, and all I could focus on was my business. This was what I did for fun. This was my hobby. This is what I loved to do. It gave me energy. You know, so it didn't seem like a sacrifice, you know, at the time, because I was just having so much fun. It's like a giant puzzle in front of you. You have all the pieces, and you just got to figure out how they all fit.
Look at that.
You know,
Yeah.
And yeah, there's a lot of failure. You know, there's a lot of times we botched a lot of things and made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah, let's talk
Right?
about that. What was the first failure you had?
Okay, well, because there's a lot of them, you know, buckle up. In this city, we have a fierce pride for our community, which community we actually live in.
That's right.
Whether you're from the Beltline or Marta Loop or Forest Lawn or Bridgeland or Kensington, like, there's so many great communities. And I really wanted to tap into that fierce community pride.
Yeah.
So I actually started the business with the idea of building out these community shirts, these Calgary community shirts.
Because it's different here in Calgary than any other major city in Canada.
Yeah.
If you go to, let's say, Vancouver or Toronto, they talk about that city they're part of.
Yeah.
They don't talk about that smaller area within that city.
Yeah.
Here in Calgary, we talk about what part of the city we're in.
Yeah.
Not just the quadrant,
Yeah.
but the community, like you're mentioning. So Forest Lawn, I'm a Marlboro boy growing up.
Yeah.
Right?
And even if you don't live in Marlboro anymore, that's always has a
I'll
near
always
place.
be part of it.
Yeah.
Right? No matter what. So I get that. So how did you come to that idea then? Where was the failure from that piece?
Well, that's, you know, going to high school downtown, I saw the fierce pride that these people had for all these communities. And I was like, we could tap into that. We could brand these different communities. We could promote them and highlight and share stories. I was like, we're doing Calgary community tees. So we came out with, you know, every community you can think of. And we had designers from those communities coming up with those designs. Because, I mean, I don't know what it's like growing up in Marlboro. I'm not going to come up with a design from Marlboro. Yeah. But so I did all these tees. And I put up, you know, I thought it'd be kind of cool to put up a YYC one just for fun, just to see how people would do. And it turns out everyone loved being from these communities. No one wanted to buy a T-shirt with the community on them.
Okay.
You know? And so my whole idea was shattered. But then I started to see people were really buying these YYC shirts. Because how we started the business was utilizing drop shipping, which is, I really wouldn't have been able to start this company 10 years ago, because drop shipping really allowed me, as someone in Sweden, to set up a company to sell to Calgary. My shirts were getting made in LA and getting shipped from LA to Calgary, so I didn't have to touch a shirt. You know, 10, 20 years ago, you want to start a t-shirt company, you go out and buy 200 shirts,
correct,
stock them in your mom's garage, panhandle them any which way that you can.
Sure.
And what I started to notice was that no one was actually buying t-shirts. Everyone was buying crew neck sweaters, right? So after 6 months, I realized, okay, community shirts was a dumb idea, and t-shirts are doing okay, but maybe crew neck is the way to go. And I was like, who was buying these things? I was targeting anyone and everyone who would listen. But then you go through the customer list, and it's mostly females. And again, like, what I know, the very little I know about clothing, I know even less about women. Right? You can ask my wife on that one. So like, I don't know how I was selling all these clothing to women. Like this was mind-boggling. So after 6 months, here what I was able to do was pivot and say, we're not going to sell any more community shirts. We're going to focus on the crew necks with the YYC design in this particular color, which happened to be maroon. And we're going to focus on smalls and mediums because that seems to be the size that most women are buying. And so it was a failure, but it was the greatest failure ever. Because if I had gone out and bought 500 shirts with all these communities on them, you know, I still would be sitting on them.
Yeah.
Because I started out so cheaply, right? With so little money, I was able to test things out in a way. And once it came time to start investing a little bit more money into the company, I knew exactly where to invest it in.
Perfect.
YYC, crew necks, in maroon, in smalls, in medium.
How hard was it to let go of that idea of the communities?
So hard, because
Was
that
it?
was the idea that spurred the whole thing.
Yeah.
That was my baby.
Yeah.
My business partner was like, Connor, we're not making any money on these.
Yeah.
And it's a very costly process to print one and on demand and, you know, not stock inventory. And the margins are very low. And I held onto it for dear life.
How long did you hold on to it for?
Probably about a year and a half.
Really?
Yeah. And now the funny thing is, you want to know something funny, is just last month, there was someone in Lake Bonavista who I was like, hey, this Lake Bonavista shirt doesn't fit me anymore. I'm getting rid of it. Does anyone want it? And it blew up on the Lake Bonavista Facebook group. Like, where'd you get this shirt? We need that shirt. And now we're doing like reruns of some of these community designs. So while it wasn't the business model, that's kind of come back and helped us a little bit. So if you're in Lake Bonavista, we're making some Lake Bonavista shirts. But yeah, it was hard because that was the idea that spurred it all. But you have to, the nice thing about, you know, running a business is your ego is completely taken out of it. Just because it was your idea and it was a bad idea, it doesn't mean you're a dumb person. It just means it was a bad idea, you know? And that's where I find my success with my business partner is we're very different personalities, but it's not about, we have the same vision and same goals for our personal lives and for the business. So when he has a better idea than my idea, it's not like, well, I don't want to do that idea because it's your idea.
Yeah.
It's like, no, your idea is the better idea. That's what's going to get us to our shared vision or shared goal the fastest.
Yeah.
Let's go with that idea.
So you kind of left the ego at the door.
You have to. And that's very hard for people. It's hard for me.
Yeah.
I'm an egotistical jerk, just like everyone else. You know, I think about me all the time. So it's hard to do, but you have to for the sake of the business, for the sake of your customers, right? Because if you just go around thinking that every idea that pops out into your head is liquid gold, right? You're not going to go anywhere.
You're not going to go anywhere.
Right? You're going to be blinded by your own ego, right?
One thing that you've mentioned is how inexpensive it was to start up.
Yeah.
And you talked about drop shipping.
Yeah.
What the hell is drop shipping?
Yeah. Drop shipping is essentially you don't pay or produce a product until your customer has bought it. So a customer would go out on my website, they would buy a shirt, they would pay for that shirt, I'd get that money, and through an automated process, you know, that money would go to me, and then it would trigger an order with my fulfillment company, which was based out of LA. They would take the shirt off the shelves, to print it, and they would ship it. And as long as the customer's paying a little bit more than what you're paying the production, you know, there's some profit margin. There's not a lot in drop shipping. There's not a lot, and it doesn't scale well. But the benefit of drop shipping is you can test out any and all ideas, right? So, I mean, we had all these designs. Okay, let's test them out on this t-shirt. Well, what colors? Let's test them out on all the colors. Let's test them out on crew neck sweaters, hoodies, hats, bags, cell phone cases, pillows, canvas, tights, socks. Like, it just, you can test out everything and there's no cost. And you just see what sells. And then that's how we were able to kind of figure out, okay, yeah, the pink Bridgeland t-shirt is not moving.
Yeah.
But, you know, the YYC maroon crew neck is. Let's focus on that and let's build some inventory on that. So it's a great way to start a business, very economical. I'd say anyone can do it. We like to say that, like, the starting an online t-shirt company is the 21st century version of starting a lemonade stand. I recommend every parent, every high school kid, you want to learn the basic fundamentals of business, start an online t-shirt company.
Beautiful.
I'm telling you, if I can figure it out, anyone can figure it out. It's that easy. But it's the easy part for the reason. It's how do you take that? How do you grow it? How do you scale it? Right?
Are you still using drop shipping?
No.
When did that switch happen?
The switch happened when retailers started to become interested in us. So stores started to approach us.
They approached you?
Yeah. Yeah, they started to approach us.
That's what's weird, because most manufacturers will go to retail and say, I'll sell through your retail channel.
Yeah.
You actually had retailers come to you and say, I want your product on my shelf?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's kind of that's a big piece of advice I tell businesses that are just starting out. They right from the very beginning, they work retail into their business plan. I tell them, don't worry about retail. When you have a product that's good enough, retailers, believe me, they will come to you. Don't worry about retail, because retail is a whole different model. Retail, they come to you, they want to buy your product for 50% of the retail price. So you have to be profitable at 50% of your retail price. And that doesn't happen with drop shipping. So in order to get that profit margin that you're going after, to be profitable at 50% of your retail price, you have to produce in bulk. So that switched when retailers started approaching us. And I didn't know how retail worked. I'll never forget our first meeting. I met my business partner. He had come on board. This was like our first official meeting together. We got briefcases and suits on and went down. It was Luke's Drug Mart, not far from here, Bridgeland. And it was this young guy who was the buyer. He had a really cool hat on and a funky shirt. And we showed up to the meeting and we had legal pad and everything ready to go. And so, okay, sir, how does this work? We're fairly new to this business. You just let us know the terms and the agreement and how this deal will be structured. And he goes, Connor, this kid was like 22. He was like 5 years younger than me. He's like, it's very simple. You give us clothes and then we'll give you money. And that's it. I was like, okay, I think we're in agreement with that. People as business owners, we tend to overcomplicate things in our own minds.
Absolutely.
The world is a simple place. We all want the same things. Most things are simple transactions. You give me clothes, I give you money. How hard is that? We agree on a price. And it doesn't have to be as difficult as you make it seem. But all these little lessons, I was just so curious. I think one of my greatest skill set is I'm not afraid to look like the biggest dum-dum in the room.
Okay.
Because if you try and pretend like you're Mr. Know-it-all, you're going to find yourself in situations where you don't know what to do and it could cost you.
For sure.
But if I'm in a meeting, with a higher up, a really big deal, and there's a really simple question that I don't know the answer to, I'm going to shoot my hand up and say, slow it down for me. Explain this to me as if you would to your 5-year-old child. Yeah. Like dumb it down to the lowest common denominator.
Nice.
And sometimes you get looks and like, who is this guy? He has no business here. But then I know what I need to know.
Correct.
And then I don't have to ask and I don't have to pretend. Yeah. So
so you get your first retail contract. Yeah. Was it a contract?
It wasn't even a contract.
It was a handshake?
It was a handshake. Yeah.
Did you learn anything from that now?
Absolutely.
Everything's in contracts now, I hope.
For some things. But for us, relationships have always been the key and heart. There are so many people that we have, handshake agreements with, and we only work with people that value relationships as much as we do. And I'll tell you this, we've never been burned by a retailer. We've never been burned by a service provider or anything like that. And yes, sure, relationships come and go, but we put relationships at the forefront of everything we do. We're not designers. We're not fashionistas. We're not even that great businessmen. But what we are great is relationships.
What are some of the things that you do to make sure that relationship is strong?
The easiest thing to do is say thank you. You would be shocked how many service providers there are, how many customers there are that never get thanked. For those closer relationships, our lawyer, our bookkeeper, your team members, your retailers. What I love doing personally is I love finding out everyone's birthday. I love, as soon as someone comes on, I'm like, okay, they're going to be around for a while. I'm like, what's your birthday? And I just bring it up in the most casual way possible. And they go like, April 12th. And you're like, oh, okay. And then you just make a little note, put it in your calendar, get a notification the week before. And sometimes it's as little as sending a bottle of wine, sending a pack of Crave cupcakes. And you would not believe how far $50 on some beer goes in the business world when it comes to these contracts or these negotiations.
You're making it personal. You're remembering them.
Absolutely. And I think you have to. I mean, if you're in business, you spend the most of your waking lives with these people. You want to like them and you want them to like you. And it goes the other way too. We don't do business who we can't build a relationship with. We've had buyers and that kind of thing where they're like, yep, I need 50 shirts by next week. Got it? Good. And I'm like, oh, wait, what are you up to this weekend? Doing anything fun? What are you into? And they have no interest. Yeah. So you know what? If you're not interested in us and getting to know us, and I'm not saying you got to take me out on a date and we got to be best friends forever. Our family's going to vacation twice a year. But I mean, just spend 5 minutes with me, and if you can't make that a priority, then I know you're not going to make my business a priority.
So you've got how many retailers out selling your stuff today?
Well, before all the craziness, we were doing quite well at retail.
Yeah.
Retail was anywhere from 50-60% of our revenue.
Look at that.
We partnered with the likes of Mark's, another great Canadian and Calgary business below the belt. We were in probably about 10, 12 independent retailers, right? So we were in probably about 20, 25 stores across Canada.
That's great.
Amazing,
Yeah.
right? But then this little thing called 2020 comes knocking and said, no, you guys. And come March, our retail sales fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
Right? No one's going out. Stores are shutting their doors. And so there goes a massive chunk of our revenue.
For sure.
But I think this is going to be one of our strongest years ever because it's forced us to have those difficult conversations, to make those difficult decisions, to take a good hard look at our business, our manufacturing, our supply chain, our systems, and how can we, redesign them and rearrange that puzzle, like I was talking about, in order to serve us in the new world.
I say there's 5 P's for a successful business.
Yeah.
So people, product, process, passion, and get paid.
I like that.
What you're walking me through is the process and how you had to adjust during this pandemic.
Yeah.
What's changed besides retail? We understand that situation. But you talked about supply chain. You talked about all these other things that you're re-looking at. What's changed? What have you made decisions on that business owners could say, shit, I could learn something from here too.
Well, I think the most important change we actually made 2 years ago. And that was the decision to switch entire manufacturing operations to Canadian made. Unlike most companies who grow and scale, we onshored our production. We onshored our manufacturing.
Why?
Because we're a business called Local Laundry, and people kept asking me where our clothes were made.
Were they? Okay.
Yeah, and our hats were made in Bangladesh, our shirts were made in Pakistan, T-shirts in Mexico, and people were like,
You're not very local.
yeah, you're called Local Laundry, but your stuff's made all over the world. It's made anywhere but local. And I realized that we had this really cool design in the YYC design.
Yeah.
Everyone loved it. We didn't know why, but they did. And we tried to dissect it, and we said, you know what? People love it now, but there might come a day where people don't like it. And we have to be bigger than just a cool design brand.
Yeah.
We have to have some longevity. We have to, step up our games from a brand value perspective. And so we looked at our manufacturing and said, let's make our stuff here. Let's make it higher quality. Let's make it more responsibility. And let's continually get better and start to shout out and be a herald for all the benefits of supporting Canadian manufacturing.
Didn't that increase your costs?
Oh, yeah. That's what everyone told me. Everyone, my manufacturer, my decorator, my business partner, everyone, they're like, you're nuts. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Costs are going to go through the roof. And so we were terrified. But here's what I started to notice. That's why no one else is doing it. And if we can make that jump, and yes, we'll have to increase our prices, but if we can make that jump, then we're not competing with anyone else. Everyone else, Roots, Abercrombie & Fitch, Nike, any other clothing brand, who's making it overseas, now we can compete in a whole different ball game where no one can touch us. And you say, yes, we're going to increase our prices, but we're going to educate people on why we increased our prices. And we're going to be saying why it's better to support a Canadian-made clothing company versus a clothing company where you can get a cheaper garment, but it's not going to last you long. You don't know how it was made. You don't know how the people were treated who made it. And you certainly don't know the economic benefits. So we were terrified. Our costs went up 25%. Our prices went up 25%.
Yeah.
And we made that switch, and it was awkward. It was clunky. It was not fair to a lot of our retail partners. But here we were on this other side, and comes the day where we do the big Canadian-made launch. And to our surprise, people started buying more. People understood it. People were saying, thank you. Finally, people understood the value in Canadian-made.
There you go.
Because we used to make things here in this country.
Surprising, eh?
I know, it's crazy. From toothbrushes to shoes to hangers to cars to mattresses,
Yeah.
we used to make things here, and we've somehow lost our way.
Yeah.
We've forgotten about it. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to bring that back, that sense of pride in something that's made here. Because, yes, the reason it's more expensive is because you're paying Canadian labor, right? You're paying companies that are adhering to strict Canadian labor laws, strict Canadian environmental laws, because making clothing is a dirty process.
Sure.
It is something that we are not most proud of, and we're trying to do our best to make it a much more efficient and environmentally friendly way.
Yeah.
And so there's a cost to all those associated to that, right? And we see that as a good thing. We want our workers to have benefits. We want them to have living wages. We want the waste that is produced to make our clothes to be dealt with in an efficient way, right? That's friendly to the environment. And I have to say, it was very difficult, but coming out of it 2 years later, that was the best decision we ever made and set us up perfectly to handle a pandemic like this that we're going through right now.
Yeah.
And now what we're starting to see is these organizations that want to support Canadian made, that want to support local, that want to support small business. And they're partnering with us to produce some really great Canadian made garments for their team, for their customers that they actually want to wear, right? It's high quality. It's not just a shirt that you wear once for a volunteer day and then you sleep in, for the next 3 years, right? We don't want to make pajamas for people.
Why are you looking at me when I'm sleeping? That's exactly what's happening. I wear those t-shirts after I volunteer. I get a free t-shirt and that's put it on when I'm going to bed.
Right?
Yeah.
That's what we all do. And so we've kind of positioned ourselves to work with organizations and say, look, let's spend a little bit more money because it's going to be a little bit more expensive, but let's produce a quality shirt. It can have your logo if you want, or it can have a design that kind of shares your story in another way and doesn't make people feel like a walking billboard, make people proud to wear it, make people excited to wear it.
Yeah.
And so we've stepped up that side of our business. And like our customers have been really great. They stepped up online. They've been supporting us all the way. And these other organizations that want to support local, want to support Canadian made, they stepped up. And now those two revenue bases have overtaken anything that was our retail revenue prior.
Look at that.
Yeah, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't, like I said, it was very tough, difficult conversations, but now we're in a better position than when we were.
And so when retail comes back, it just adds on to it.
It just adds on to it, right? And this is where small business can sometimes get in trouble with retail. If they're like flirting with 70, 80, 90% of your revenue coming through retail, that gives a lot of power to the retailers.
Yeah.
When they say, I want this shirt in navy and I want to pay X number of dollars for it, you don't have that much control.
Yeah.
So it's important to have retail, but a lot of small businesses, they got to get in their minds that retail isn't everything. Retail really helped us grow. I cannot stress that enough. It helped us get to a different market. It helped us get to where we are so proud and thankful to every single one of our retail partners.
Yeah.
I'll forever be indebted to them, and we'll always work with them, always. But that can't be your entire focus.
Yeah.
Right?
How many employees do you have now?
2 full-time and 3-4 part-time.
How hard is it to keep everybody corralled and in the right direction with the same vision that you have?
Well, I think you have to make that a priority. I really do. The idea of culture and the idea that goes back to that relationship. I make sure I know every one of our team members' birthday. I make sure to check in with everyone. How are you feeling? Work aside, local owner aside, everything going okay?
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do to help? It's absolutely vital. And you have to have that shared sense of vision and mission. Like, what are we doing this for?
Yeah.
What's the point?
What happens when you have 100 or 200 employees? You're going to memorize everybody's, or I'm going to put everybody's birthday in your phone and do the same thing? Like, is that feasible?
I believe in some fashion, yeah. I think when it gets to 100, 200, 300, there's a time where you kind of have to take a step back and realize that you're not going to be the driver of the culture anymore. But we really look up to companies like Patagonia, who were trailblazers in the sense of, they were the first company to offer paid for daycare for all the parents of the company. They could bring their kids to work and have free childcare, and I love that idea. So it is possible to maintain that culture.
It doesn't sound like you're going after a boatload of money. It sounds like you have a different mission.
Absolutely.
What's the mission?
I think the mission now is that we always say we want to build community, and we want to kind of be the thought leaders that, we can play a part in bringing back Canadian manufacturing and the benefits that brings it back. And we can play a part in sharing with other small businesses that just because you're a small business doesn't mean you can't have a big impact in the community. It's not about writing $1 million checks, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's organizing volunteer events. Sometimes it's, allowing a charity or a cause to write a blog on your website, or doing a shared garment or a shared photo shoot. Like, there's so many different ways that you can create an impact.
You've talked about how you've been able to share and talk about your story.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
You have to invite people into your story, right? To share that story. And I think you really have to share other people's stories as well. There's so many great people that we've worked with, great organizations, from retail partners to content creators to other organizations. Their story is your story.
Yeah.
So we kind of took it upon ourselves. And this started way back when I first started, because I didn't have any money. I didn't want to spend any money on marketing or advertising or any of that. So I started to find other people that were in the same position, that were really passionate, excited about something, that they wanted to grow. And I said, look, why don't we work together? I have no money, you have no money, but we're both trying to get somewhere. Let's see if we can get there together. So we'd, do photo shoots together, or we would, come up with some models and be models for each other's businesses, or we'd shoot in their cafe. And by telling everyone else's story, we quickly discovered we were actually telling our story. Everyone else's story is our story.
What's been the best way of you to share your story? Has it been social media, conventional media?
Everyone thinks, okay, business, got to get on social media, got to get to 100 million followers by next week. Like, that's the only way we can get big. Social media is great. It's not the be all end all. It's a tool to help amplify your message. And that's all it should ever be. If your focus is solely just to grow, get a million followers on social, you're missing the point. It's about engaging with one single person at a time and building that engaged person.
That takes forever though, Connor.
I know.
Oh my God, we're so impatient. We want to get those followers all right away.
I know.
So is that a lesson? You've talked about making money and people to be patient. Is that the same thing when you're looking at building a community? You're saying it's one person at a time.
Yeah.
That can take 5 years to, to build a community.
And the community we want to build, it's probably going to take 10, 20 years.
What 3 pieces of advice you can give business owners today?
I think if you want to start a business, stop talking about it and just do it. Don't write a business plan. Don't come up with a perfect product. That first product version of it that you launch should be the ugliest. You should be embarrassed to put it out there, right? Because you're going to get great feedback, right?
Yeah.
You might think you have a great idea. Your mom might tell you might have a great idea. Your buddies. The only way you know you have a good idea is when the market is buying. The market will tell you if you have a great idea or not. So don't be afraid. Stop talking about it and just get it out there and adjust on the fly. Okay. The second piece that I kind of brought up is, how do you build a following? How do you build a community? One engaged person at a time. Treat every interaction with another human being as if they're the most important human being ever. And I think this is a good thing, not just for business, but in our personal lives. We all have such busy lives, and I think the one thing that this pandemic has really shown us is the value of human relationships. Mm-hmm. And then my third piece of advice, which was very difficult for me and which we never really touched upon, is measure what matters. Like, really understand that your numbers as a business owner, right? And that's something that I always kind of struggle with, and something that my business partner is really good with. If you're not making money, if you're not bringing cash in, like, you're not a business. Like, you're not gonna be in business for a long time. You have to understand your profit margin. You have to understand, if you're an online store, understand your conversion rate. Figure out the metrics that you need to know and measure them properly. All these things about talking about community and relationships, all these fluffy pieces, that's the fun, exciting part. Yeah. It's the sexy part of business. When it comes down to brass taxes and, how much GST do we have to remit this quarter?
Yeah.
That's not fun. That's not sexy. No one wants to do that stuff, but you have to. And if you keep pushing it away, you're going to have issues, right?
It'll catch up to you.
It will. So you have to face that head on. Do not be afraid to understand those numbers. You absolutely have to, and it's vital.
Connor, thank you so much for coming in today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Awesome. If you want more real talk and tips to help you succeed in your business, subscribe for all the latest updates. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.